Hi, today's good person to know is Fraser Doherty. He's founder of Super Jam, which he started when he was 14 years old. His grandmother taught him how to make jam and he started selling it door to door, and then he moved on to the farmers markets, and at 15 he was in the papers for starting a jam business, and it wasn't too long after that that he was selling his jams in the supermarkets. So how exactly did Fraser do it? It occurred to Fraser early on that he wanted his jam to be all natural from 100% fruit with no added sweeteners, and he pitched his idea to Waitrose at a Meet the Buyer event. And you should really research into those because it's an opportunity and a half that you just cannot miss. If you have a product, seriously attend one of these events because the advice you can get from those is invaluable and the feedback absolutely fantastic. Anyway, the buyer gave Fraser tons of advice and he made it his mission to comply with every request. The following year, Waitrose trialled his jam and the rest, they say, is history. To date, Fraser has sold millions of jars of jam and sold in over 2,000 stores. Was Fraser's success down to his story? Well, Fraser seems to think so. He says everyone's got a story, and everyone does have a story. You have a story as well. You just have to be brave enough to say it. Are you? I hope you enjoy this video. It's really relevant to anyone who's trying to break into the supermarket chain. Thank you for watching.
Making it myself and selling it door to door out of a little plastic bucket, and after a while I was making about 1,000 jars of jam a week in my parents' little kitchen and selling them at farmers markets all over Scotland. And the first time I ever got any publicity was when at the age of about 15 I found myself on page 3 of the Edinburgh Evening News. I guess that it probably just meant there wasn't very much happening in Edinburgh that day for the story of a kid making jam to make it into the news. But from then I started selling it to supermarkets. We've launched in about 2,000 stores around the world, sold millions of jars of jam, set up a charity running tea parties for elderly people. 16, and I had this idea to try and make jam 100% from fruit. Jam's usually got a lot of sugar and sometimes additives in. And I got a kind of big break when I got a chance to pitch my idea to Waitrose at a Meet the Buyer Day. And Meet the Buyer Days I kind of describe as the X factor of selling groceries to supermarkets. Hundreds of people show up and pitch their products, and everybody gets 10 minutes to pitch their idea, in my case to the senior jam buyer of Waitrose. And, I turned up with my dad's suit on, probably 2 sizes too big for me, and I told him all about this idea that I had, and he said, great idea, but you need to find a factory, and you need to get a good price, and you have to get labels designed, but if you can do all of that, then come back next year and maybe we'll give it a shot. So I then spent about a year convincing a factory to work with me to make my recipes on a big scale and getting labels designed that hopefully kind of communicated to people why they should buy my product. And eventually Waitrose agreed to kind of try it on their shelves. There was a huge amount of publicity when they launched it, and I didn't really imagine that was going to happen, didn't really do anything to try and make it happen, but I found myself kind of interviewed on GMTV and This Morning and BBC Breakfast, and I think on the first day in one store in Edinburgh, where I'm from, they sold maybe 1,500 jars of Super Jam in one day. All I had was this idea, and amazingly, the press kind of heard about this story and kind of ran with it. And then sometimes people say, well, it's okay for you because you had that story. You had the story of your gran teaching you how to make jam, and you were this kid, and but I don't have that story. So what can I do? And I always say, well, I think everybody has a story. I think everybody has some kind of story that they can tell. There's some amazing reason for why you came up with the idea that you have and you started the business that you have. And, probably the challenge is just figuring out what the story is and how to tell it. If you are pitching to a big company and you have press clippings, make sure that you show them. And then when we launched in Waitrose, they did send out a press release, and they have amazing contacts and really help to get the publicity. So if you are working with a big company, try and get the people there excited about your story, and then you've got a much bigger organization to promote it than you can on your own. So yeah, I was really grateful to it. Obviously I was kind of 16, 17, and I didn't have all the answers. I didn't have a clue how supermarkets worked or how factories worked or anything like that. So I just went there and said, I've got this idea. I think it would be great in Waitrose. What do I need to do to make it happen? And what would you do if you were in my shoes? And just asked for their advice. And was really honest that I didn't really know what the next steps were. And then the buyer said, do this, this, and this. And if you do it in this particular way, then when you come back, maybe I'll think about it. So when I did all the things he had, and I went back, you know, it was kind of like it was his baby as well, and you know, how could he possibly say no? I think it's up to everybody to make their own decision about education. In my case, there was a lot of help available at university for students starting their own business. There was like an incubator and, you know, grants and advice and stuff like that, which was really helpful. But then I also think that, you know, there's nothing wrong with just like rolling up your sleeves, trying your idea, seeing if it works, learning from it. And you know, maybe the opportunity that you have to start a business, you see it as just being, you know, here and now, but you know, university's there forever, you know, so there's no rush to go to university after you finish school. Fortunate position of not really having to pay for a PR agency, although whenever we've launched the products in other countries, I've, you know, hired PR agencies there, and hopefully the PR is good. I've no idea what it says. But I think like your question about the equity was that I think the challenge is that, you know, working with a PR agency and tying them in with equity, you know, you then have this kind of marriage where if they suddenly lose passion for what you do, then they still want to share in your business. And you know, one of the great things I've found about having PR agencies is you can give them a little project to work on for £1,000 and see if they get any publicity for you. If they do, then you know, you maybe put them on a retainer. But you know, I would always say, like, test, you know, a designer or any kind of person that's working for you, you know, test them out first before you know, commit to kind of marrying them forever.